Draw me like one of your French girls. Oh, hello, and welcome back to Bloodborne, my fellow hunters. Last time we explored Yahar'gul Unseen Village and saw the horrors it had to offer. Today we'll be checking out a side area, but before that let's purchase this madman set here from the Insight shop. It is the armor of healing church hunters sent into the old labyrinths who have gone mad. Truth oft resembles madness, inaccessible to the dull of mind. Those who go mad are merely thoughtful souls who fail to reach any conclusions. Certainly an elegant way of putting it, they've gone bonkers. So let's try it on. Looking pretty good, although the weird snake charm is kind of a bit clashing with the rest of the outfit. I suppose I shouldn't expect a madman to be a good fashionista. At any rate, for this video we'll be using the Rider Palace that we picked up in the Castle Cainhurst. It is a combination of an elegant knight sword, a rapier, and a firearm, making for a truly unique weapon, as we'll see as we use it in combat. But first, some levels.
Welcome home, good hunter. What is it you desire? Very well. Let the echoes become your strength. Let me stand close. Now shut your eyes.
I would so love to put all these 6 points into vitality. It would make my job a lot easier having that boosted health. But for the sake of the LP and showing off every single weapon in the game, since there is a rather small amount of them, I'll be putting those points into strength instead to wield more items in the future.
Farewell, good hunter. May you find your worth in the waking world.
Alright, so when we explored Yahar'gul Unseen Village, we picked up a rather important key, as I mentioned when we picked it up. The Upper Cathedral key, leading to the Upper Cathedral ward. So let's go use that. If you remember, while in the Cathedral ward, more specifically the Healing Church workshop, we discovered a locked door. That said, before we go check that out, let's check in on everyone here. Ariana isn't looking too good. Excuse me? Yeah, she's not doing too good. Let's go check in on our friend here then.
There ain't no more survivors. There can't be. Yarnum's done for.
He's not doing all that well either. But oh hey, the old lady's back from her trip. That's good.
Welcome home, dear. You've been very, very patient. Here you are. This will help you forget. Forget your troubles. Forget your cares.
Same dialogue as last time, so let's just skip past that. We can send her out to get more sedatives. And she's already survived once, so I'm sure she'll be okay.
Ah, your lies spin a web, but I see through your deceit.
Yeah, this guy has nothing new to say. So, how's Adela doing? Maybe she's looking up. Okay then, see you later I guess. Alright, let's go use this key. Normally I'd skip past this here, but I'm gonna show it just to show off the Rider Palace, since this is a shorter episode than normal. So, as I've already mentioned, the Rite of Passage combines a rapier with its swift, elegant thrusts, along with a firearm allowing you to shoot bullets, although not when it is untransformed. Untransformed, it is merely a rapier with all the pokes and quick slashes that you'd expect. Notably, compared to the Dark Souls games, its moveset is not entirely thrusting attacks, and several of its R1s and its R1 combo are actually slashing damage. Its R2 has both properties. Normal uncharged is a slashing horizontal attack, good for hitting multiple enemies, but fully charged up it is a stab, doing thrust damage. This can actually be to the weapon's disadvantage. The fact that it is capable of thrust damage means it is excellent versus enemies that are resistant to physical other than thrust, such as the Celestial Emissary enemy type or the Brain Sucker enemy type. So in this video where we'll actually be fighting those enemies a bit, you'll notice that, say, the first R1 of a combo will do, say, 200-300 damage, but the second will do 50 or less, and that's because the second does slashing damage, which they heavily resist. But against most enemy types it's really not that big of a deal, and even if it is technically less effective, it is an overall cooler moveset than just repeatedly poking in the center, so it is what it is. So that's the untransformed moveset. The transform moveset is pretty novel. When transformed, you withdraw the blade back a bit, reducing your rapier to more of a gentleman's saber type of weapon. In this mode it does entirely slashing damage, losing its thrust damage bonuses. But it does become a bit easier to hit multiple enemies, so it has its uses. And here we come up to the room with the locked door, the wonderful rolling pot room. Easily the most fun one in the game, hands down. So let's use that key then and gain access to the upper Cathedral ward. After Yahagul, it doesn't seem all that impressive, although what is that thing? Let's get a closer look. It's all fleshy and slimy and gross. But it seems it seemed non-hostile, but I guess we angered it by entering it into its personal space, so we'll have to take care of it. This here is a celestial child, and it too is resistant to all forms of physical damage other than thrust. The fact that such enemies are pretty prevalent in this area makes the Rite of Passage a really good weapon to use here. If you don't have it, the Ludwig's Holy Blade is also excellent due to its powerful R2 thrust attacks. So here we encounter a few more church servants. These ones are considerably beefier than the earlier ones, but are still easily enough taken out with visceral attacks. That said, if you leave them alive, they can be truly a pain to deal with, as the black-garbed one harries you with melee attacks, and the white-garbed one distracts you with its powerful and unparryable magic. If you happen to run ahead, you can end up tangled with these guys, and even though normally they're no threat, they can nip at your heels, which can actually be pretty lethal. I don't believe it happens here, but if you get hit by any of their attacks, you will actually incur frenzy damage, which makes this armor set with its rock-bottom frenzy resistance actually really poor for this area. Although that said, this is not the worst area in the game to have a low frenzy resist armor set. That said, for this area it's a good idea to wear frenzy resistant armor, to equip the frenzy resistant rune, or to keep sedatives on your hotbar, just in case you do end up being frenzied. This here Great Lake rune is another one of the defense boosting runes. This one boosts all defense types, but only by a very minor amount, around 4% I think. So it's not totally worth it. If you're having trouble with a damage type, it's usually just one damage type, in which case you want a high amount of resistance versus that one, and not everything. So again, I never use it. Not that I ever use the defensive runes all that much anyway. They're just not very good. So here we get a bit of reprieve from baby slaughter with these carrion crows here. And here is a situation where the tiny Tonitrus really comes in handy. Just take out a whole bunch of them in a line without having to deal with their annoying, spammy bite attacks. That said, you're probably better off not even coming this way, because the only reward is that single item placement there. And as you'll see in about 3 seconds, it's not very worthwhile, just a simple frenzied cold blood. I think they could at least put like a madman's knowledge or something somewhat worthwhile, but hey. Here we have the most dangerous variant of the church doctors, the scythe-wielding ones. But like their brethren, they are so incredibly easily staggered. The window is seriously too long there. That said, you'll notice that I staggered him in a somewhat novel way with the Ebrietas, and that's because the transform attack from the untransform to transform mode is actually a gunshot, allowing you to do fancy stuff like a regular attack followed by a gunshot to stagger your enemy's attempted counterattack. Quite useful in PvP if you can time it right. So, for dealing with that rather unwary brain sucker, we pick up the Choir set, which boasts massive arcane defense. Members of the Choir are both the highest-ranking clerics of the Healing Church, and scholars who continue the work that began at Byrgenwerth. Together with the Left Behind Great One, they look to the skies in search of astral signs that may lead them to the rediscovery of true greatness. And it's worth noting that that's not the first time we've seen that armor set. The last scholar, Uriel, who we fought in Byrgenwerth, was wearing it. And, hey, don't think I don't see you up there. The Scourge Beast clinging to that rather elaborate chandelier. I'm sure he won't try to ambush us at some point. At any rate, down this hallway here we can pick up a madman's knowledge and encounter a locked door with someone behind it. Hi there, dude. Same. Hey, don't you turn away from me, rude bastard. Alright, so let's go back and check down the other end of the hallway. Hi there. This is actually a different Scourge Beast than the one we saw on the chandelier, but it is of the same type. The blue-eyed werewolf, the strongest type in the game. And also the most valuable to hunt because they drop 3 tiers of upgrade materials, shards, twin shards, and chunks, although their drop rate for chunks is abysmally low. Despite that, they're arguably the best enemy type in the game to farm chunks from, so if you want to use a lot of weapons, these guys are your go-to. And thankfully, like their lesser brethren, they are easily taken out by staggering followed by visceral attacks, which again makes the Ebrietas, with its ability to shoot in its transfer mode with its heavy attack, incredibly useful for this area. Yeah, that one Scourge Beast we noticed before is ambushing us, and not by his lonesome either. This is probably the most dangerous encounter in the game if you don't cheese it like I am here. Fortunately, the 3 Scourge Beasts are too big to fit through the door, and thanks to Shaman Bone Blades, this encounter, which even now can be dangerous just due to their ability to hit through walls, it just makes it a complete joke as you can have them tear each other apart like so. If you want to do it more legitimately, let's say, you pretty much just have to get visceral attack after visceral attack and take them out pretty much one after the other, otherwise you will get mobbed. I've done it before, but not without many deaths, so I don't really recommend going about it that way. And with one left, we can just finish him off at a distance with the Ebrietas' gun. That's something else that's noteworthy, is that although the blood damage, which is what the gun shots scale off with, is not too high, you can actually boost it considerably, thanks to the fact that you can equip 3 blood gems to this weapon, whereas with normal firearms you can only equip a single blood gem as it only has a single slot. So this thing's gun damage is actually pretty high up there with the Evelyn potentially, depending on your stats. in the blood gems that you're using. Oh yeah, so if you were hoping to make that encounter with the 3 Scourge Beasts a bit easier by heading down into this area here with its greater room for maneuvering and cover thanks to the pillars, the game just says fuck you and introduces you to another Scourge Beast who will probably rip your hide open from behind while you're distracted by the other 3, so don't do that, don't come down here. Well, that's interesting. Chalice Dungeon Ritual Blood in this main game area. I wonder what that could mean. Oh yeah, and here's a bit of an odd encounter. In addition to that 4th Scourge Beast, there's also a brain sucker patrolling a hallway to the right here. Normally she just patrols that hallway and doesn't ever come out, so I'm not sure why she did here, what exactly I did to trigger that. But thankfully her surprisingly didn't lead to a horrible death or a loss of insight from her latching onto me. So now that we have all types of ritual blood, save the first, let's look at them in sequence. Pool of blood with a strange lump. And then you realize that that lump is a skull. And then more skulls, culminating in very more skulls with the final tier of ritual blood. Cool way that the item appearance evolves as it becomes more potent. Perhaps suggesting that the blood has a life of its own, going along with the Odin rune description mentioning that it is the body of the Great One Odin. At any rate, this here is the hallway that the brain sucker was patrolling and getting this Cosmic Eye Watcher badge, which signifies the very cosmos. The choir stumbled upon an epiphany very suddenly and quite by accident. Here we stand, feet planted in the earth, but might the cosmos be very near us, only just above our heads? So let's check out the last bit of this room that we have yet to explore, the left side hallway. Immediately tempting us with a wandering nightmare, and one that you want to kill very quickly or just ignore and then quit the game and reload, because he's leading you into a rather nefarious ambush with this brain sucker here. Fortunately, if you notice her, she's easily taken out since she's by her lonesome, but if you just rush in, you could easily get grabbed and lose quite a bit of your blood, as well as some points of insight. Ooh, lots of goodies. Another hallway guarded by a brain sucker at the end. It's a good thing that they're not all that threatening of an enemy type. Blindfolded Cap. This here is the hat that completes the choir set. We'll check it out in a second. But first, let's open up this door and have the first shortcut available to us. So you can skip that entire nasty encounter with the Scourge Beast now, and head straight to the upper floor. The eye covering indicates their debt to the teachings of Master Willem, even though their paths diverged. Master Willem being the head of the Bergenworth College, the large man in the wheelchair on the balcony prior to Rom, if you've forgotten. Alright, so heading back this way. It looks like we could just easily ambush this brain sucker here, but if you're paying close attention, you can actually see one over there. That's actually the one that was on the other side of the closed door we encountered earlier. By making use of the blue elixir, we can approach this one and ambush it without alerting the other. One of the few places in the PvE where it's actually very useful to use. And then we can take this one out by its lonesome. So, despite the fact that these guys aren't too terribly threatening, you shouldn't ever take lightly of them, as otherwise you'll easily get yourself grabbed and lose several points of insight. Something I'm not sure if I've mentioned before is the fact that you can actually escape their grab early if you mash the shoulder buttons. That's what I did there, why I did not collapse to the ground afterward, and why I only lost a single point of insight. If you don't do that, you'll lose several, which makes their grab much more devastating. So let's check out that key we got. The orphanage, shadowed by the Grand Cathedral, was a place of scholarship and experimentation, where young orphans became potent, unseen thinkers for the Healing Church. The choir that would later split the Healing Church was a creation of the orphanage. We've already seen mention of that split as the church divided into the choir and the school of Mensis. And it was a result of the orphanage, and given that we have the key to the orphanage, I guess we'll be finding out what that is. So this here is a bit interesting. We can talk to this rather skeletonized man here, and we get a gesture for it, the make contact gesture. I suppose maybe we can try and use it to make contact with otherworldly beings. It's actually a real-world thing, interestingly enough, the idea being that it's meant as a sign to extraterrestrial life to show that we understand math, given that it is the Pythagorean theorem. I'm not entirely sure whether that would really hold up. It's based on the assumption that extraterrestrial life would have a similar math system, but it's interesting. Alright, so let's go use that key and enter the orphanage then. Here we have a very handy shortcut, this gate being right outside the lantern at the start of this area. It's also worth noting that this is actually the best way to farm those Scourge Beasts. Here you can come up on them from behind and take them out one at a time, which is handy if you want to farm them for their blood chunks or twin shards. Oh hey, it's a blobby thing. Bye, blobby thing. I will never get tired of calling them blobby things. I love that that is actually a word, a phrase you can use in the message system here. At any rate, this place is suitably eerie. It's like an alien garden of some type. And we're not alone. Here's the Celestial Emissary boss. So at first glance this appears to be your typical horde fight, where you have to take down all of these smaller guys to damage the larger health bar. But it pretty quickly becomes apparent that that is not the case, as they have their own separate health bars, and killing them does not take any HP away from the larger one. At that point you may notice that there is always one Celestial Emissary who is a bit more cowardly than the rest, and who backs off at all times. That is the actual boss, the one that you actually want to focus on. It goes down quite quickly thanks to its dual weakness to thrust and bolt damage, but it is a bit like the Hulk in that things get crazy when it gets angry. Oh yeah, this here is a situation where the tiny Tonitrus really shines, doing enough damage to take out the smaller Celestial Emissaries in one go, and to still do quite a number on the larger one. When you get him to even lower HP, he'll change once more, this time getting a nifty haircut, and gaining the ability to cast spells, bigger versions of the spells that the crazy potentacled smaller Celestial Emissaries use. I try and get him to show off his spells, but he decided to be uncooperative, so I eventually give up and just decide to murk him. Not really a terribly threatening boss, at least if you can understand the gimmick quickly enough. So, at this point, normally I would light the lantern, face you, and wave goodbye. But we're not done here yet, as I'm sure you can guess based off of the video length. There's actually a bit more to this area here, a rather cleverly hidden secret. With this breakable window here, the only time such a thing shows off in any of the Soulsborne games, if I'm not mistaken. So, this place isn't entirely new per se, as we're actually overlooking an old area. The Grand Cathedral where we fought the transformed Vicar Amelia. The upper cathedral ward was just above our heads all this time, just like space. So this here is the heftiest costing arcane tool in the game, requiring 40 arcane and 7 bullets for use. Long ago, the Healing Church used phantasms to reach a lofty plane of darkness, but failed to make contact with the outer reaches of the cosmos. It'll be a while before we have the arcane necessary to use it, but we have actually seen it used before. Both Yurie and the Forgotten Madman have used it on us. It's that crazy multiple projectile attack that they have. So heading down this elevator here, we encounter a few more celestial children, one that look like they're praying. As to what they're praying to, we can see it off in the distance there. The choir garb mentioned that the choir were working with a left-behind Great One, and we may have just found it. But before we go attempt to interact with it, let's summon this old hunter here. Damien, Scholar of Mensis, just to get a look at him. He won't actually be helping us in the coming fight. So the School of Mensis is based in the Unseen Village, and we've actually seen these cages before on the many corpses sitting in chairs, littering the village, both before and after the Blood Moon for that matter. As to what that means exactly, well, like many things, we'll have to wait until later for it to make any amount of sense. So let's head onward then, into the Altar of Despair. Doesn't seem to have noticed this. In fact, assuming that sphere-shaped part of its body is its head, it seems to be kneeling, praying at what looks like the corpse of Ram, the vacuous spider. Perhaps we can try and make contact with it? No, that would be too good to be true. Well, we're just going to have to do the needful then. And by do the needful, I mean poke its butt. So say hello to the left-behind Great One, Ebrietas, Daughter of the Cosmos. So right away we'll be buffing our weapon with bolt paper because Ebrietas' dual weaknesses are bolt and thrust like many of the enemies in this area. And we don't want to go easy on her because she's probably one of the more dangerous bosses in the base game. Partially for good reasons, partially for bad reasons. One that you see there is that lock-on does not always play nicely, so it's something that you want to use sparingly at best in this fight. Probably want to drop it when you get too close to her so the camera doesn't freak out. Most of her attacks involve swiping at you with her sets of tentacles, and they can be pretty difficult to avoid. Just because you can dodge to avoid her first set, but you end up getting clipped by the second set and taking massive damage due to just how high her damage output is in general. She has some other attacks that don't strictly involve her tentacles, but the one especially worth mentioning, one that she's already used, one that is incredibly bullshit and easily the worst reason why she's a difficult boss, is her charge move. While charging, her entire body becomes a hurt box, so if you even so much as clip one of her tentacles, you'll take full damage from the attack. And of course, if you happen to be clipped while exiting the dodge animation due to how difficult this attack is to dodge, you'll take massive damage. So as you may have noticed, I've been specifically trying to target her head as much as possible. There's two reasons for this. One is the fact that it takes more damage than the rest of her body. The other is the fact that if you attack it enough, she'll collapse and it'll allow you to go for a visceral attack. With good timing, you even have enough time to do a charge attack or several regular attacks, followed by that visceral attack, really doing a number on her HP. And in this case, rocketing her into her second phase, where she becomes considerably more dangerous, if that were even possible. For one, she gains a constantly damaging aura that hurts you whenever you're near her, meaning if you're left with a little bit of HP after failing to dodge one of her attacks, you can end up being finished off before you have the chance to heal. More notably, she gains a few magic spells, including this one here that you have to perfectly time your dodges with to avoid eating a lot of damage. If you get hit by a single volley, you'll probably lose most of your HP, and be stunned long enough that you'll dodge right into the next volley, if not dodging right into one of her attacks, because she's free to attack you while that magic is up. So aside from the damaging aura and the new magic spell, the main difference going into phase 2 is that she's considerably more aggressive with comboing her tentacle attacks, meaning if you get hit by one, you're likely to be hit by the follow-up attacks, at least if you fail the dodge timing. If you just panic dodge as you get hit, you will hit the future hits and probably be taken out pretty quickly. Otherwise, she's the same as phase 1. Speaking of, there's two attacks that she has and has done that I haven't yet mentioned. One is a blood spitting attack which has two variants. It's easy enough to dodge, but it's hugely punishing if you don't, as it causes heavy frenzy buildup, and with our low frenzy resist, being hit even once would be enough to proc the frenzy and lose 80% of our health, which is pretty nasty in this case. The other attack is a grab, which will cause heavy damage and frenzy buildup and is very easy to avoid due to being hugely telegraphed. But ultimately, what takes us out is not the bullshit charge or the bullshit magic, but just a simple slam down with her tentacles, thanks to a poorly timed dodge. So let's head right away into the second phase of the third attempt, the second attempt being cut entirely due to ending rather quickly. The best way to make the second phase go quickly is to do as much damage as possible as she transitions into it. If you can manage to time her collapse such that it happens just before she's about to enter the second phase, you can do a lot of damage. If our damage wasn't so weak, if we were using a +9 Rite of Passage with more skill, she'd probably be dead right now. So yeah, Madman set for this area, not my best idea with this LP, that's for sure. Thankfully I managed to get through it. And finally, Ebrietas falls. That sure was a wake-up from the much easier boss fights of One Reborn and Amygdala, that's for sure. Truly, this is a great one that could be called great. So, before we leave off, let's check out this altar here. The titular Altar of Despair. Unfortunately, we can't yet do anything, so with that, we'll leave off. Goodbye, my hunters.